Hey guys, how's it going? Today I wanted to speak about the subject of our obsession with beauty. What's up with that? Well, through commercials and many things in our life, I think we are very much reminded every time that we wake up, every time that we drive, every time that we walk, thanks to advertisement, billboards, commercials on TV, commercials that we see on the side of our web browser, stuff like that. We see a lot of advertisements for beauty. Remove acne, look young, take away your wrinkles, be fit, have abs, have better legs, have tanned bodies, have luscious hair, beautiful teeth, big eyes, contacts, LASIK, all that stuff. Well, what's interesting about that is that all of this is told to us pretty much 24/7, and it also starts at a very young age. So that's why sometimes they used to have in private schools or even in regular schools in the olden days of not that long ago, where people would have outfits, where they would have uniforms that they would have to wear during school because they didn't want to have that difference. They wanted everyone to be equal. And I do feel that when you're in college and stuff like that, you are actually more on an equal level because beauty also comes from the fact of having money. So when you're in college, sometimes you don't really realize who has what because maybe people are all living in the dorms, so you all see them on equal grounds in the classroom and stuff like that. And that is also part of beauty because it's the allure of being able to go on yachts and going to very exotic locations and having great cars, because that too, having beautiful clothes and having more than the other person, is again something that relates and correlates to beauty, because a healthy outside looking person is supposedly a healthy person inside, which to some extent can be true, because obviously you can't be healthy if you have a lot of issues from yourself. From an outside perspective, I'm not talking about clothes, but I'm talking about unhealthy skin and maybe obesity and stuff like that, which is also part of beauty, but it's a different kind of beauty because that comes and correlates to health. But definitely from a very young age, and centuries and generations even, we have had different standards of beauty. In the golden and olden days of medieval times and the Renaissance and all that stuff, it wasn't an obsession about abs that we used to have, but it was more about having beautiful calves. That's why you would see all these pants that were knee height and socks that would also go pretty much up to the knee or higher, because then by having the socks you'd have a closer up and more tight fitting pant in a way, but it's a sock which would actually highlight your calves. And I think that women in the olden days were supposed to be a little bit more plump, but then with time, for example in the 80s, it was all about being super skinny. Nowadays it's about being skinny but at the same time having a bit of muscle. And in the 80s, for example, for men it was about being very buff, kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and be a bodybuilder type, whereas now we still want to go to the gym, but we're more about a leaner body. So things change, and even if you look even before, if you take a contrast on superheroes such as Superman, that had series going on for honestly since the 30s, there's been different iterations of Superman, and you can see how a fit person was actually a little bit more chubby in the 30s, 40s, and then with time you got bigger and then leaner, and now we're just basically lean. And what Christopher Reeve he was pretty much normal looking. He looked like a fit person, but nothing extraordinary body wise. So yeah, that's our standards of beauty. Are they correct? I think, unfortunately, because we do have eyesight, we tend to judge with that. And somebody who, ironically, something that's strange is that somebody who could have been considered very beautiful maybe 50 years ago might be considered okay today. A lot of times they often refer to like Marilyn Monroe, saying that she wasn't as skinny as she was. When I look at her pictures, she looks fine to me, but yeah, compared to today's standards, she's a little bit bigger, and she was considered the most beautiful woman in the world at the time when she was making those films. And my point about this whole thing is that we put too much observation, too much importance on the exterior aspect, on the beauty standard of this time. And as you can tell, if you really look through the centuries and time, and how I've kind of told you that now, before it used to be calves, now it's abs. Before it used to be bodybuilders, now it's more lean and plump versus very skinny versus skinny muscular, etc., etc., etc. It's all a trend of the time, and the fact that we have all these advertisements which are basically telling us over and over and over, this is the standard of beauty, this is what you need to do. People start believing it and they want to imitate. And for example, something that's very funny is before it used to all be about the tan. I remember my mom back in the 80s, it was always about getting tanned. And then once they realized that maybe getting too tanned could cause cancers because it's not, and wrinkles and stuff like that, because it's not healthy. It's healthy to get some sun, you have to get sun, but to just stay in the sun for hours and hours, days on end, it's probably not the best thing. So things change, and before, at the place of tan, you had to be super white. So you can see that nowadays too with older generation of people that whenever there's sun, they actually have little umbrellas because they don't want to get tanned at all. They want to look as white as they can. And you can even see those little bleaching products for skin in the stores and stuff like that, which is kind of silly. But anyways, the thing is that we really give too much importance on beauty. And what's funny is that you see it a lot in Hollywood, where they have pretty high standards of beauty, of whatever that beauty is at the time, and they only want to cast that way because they're, of course, trying to target the 18 to 35, which are a little bit more shallow in a way, and that's what they look at, or so they think they do. Because having looked at a lot of British films and French films especially, which are very successful in those countries, sometimes the people are not that attractive. They're decent actors. Stories are usually pretty cool, depending on the movie, of course, because there's a lot of bad movies too. But they don't put so much importance on the beauty, especially if you even look at, for example, like Spanish day shows where they have all that dancing and the host and all that. Often the host is actually really old, and then he's surrounded by beautiful women. But so they do have that standard. But the thing is that, it's important not to put so much importance on this beauty, because the thing is it's really impossible standards. We're seeing like pictures that are alterated through Photoshop and all that stuff, and everybody just wants to look that way, whereas maybe it's best to try and think about what do you think is your standard of beauty, and maybe not obsessing so much on what commercials are telling you. And of course you're going to get influenced no matter what by that, because it's just unintentional. It's just given to us all the time. But I do think that you have to think about yourself and try to think about your own standards of beauty, and not think think about it so importantly. Just be healthy inside. Okay, have a great day. Bye.